Mycelia, networked intelligence and the mouldy way to grow your NGO. I'm Danny, I'm the founder and co-director of RAIN. That's the Regenerative Agroforestry Impact Network. We're a charity as of a few months ago working in Brazil. And I set it up about 4 years ago now. Because of an experience I had in Brazil, I used to really enjoy a particular stream. It was a haven for frogs and dragonflies and things like that. And when I went to go and visit there, the last time I went to go and visit there, the stream that I loved very much had dried up. And all the streams in the area had dried up. Central Brazil is facing massive deforestation at the moment and desertification. And I wondered what we could do about this. So we started a series of projects in the area, reforesting local springs around that area, working with local schools in order to provide the saplings for the springs. And that budded off into working in the favelas with black women's groups in the slums. And then we started working with indigenous groups, doing both kind of school partnerships and media partnerships where we're sponsoring young indigenous people to produce media. And it's gone out in all kinds of different directions. What I want to make clear in this talk is that the project is part of what we do, but what RAIN is the network which connects the projects together. And there are lots of barriers in the way of communication between England and Brazil. One of them is linguistic. Some of our partners can't read. Most of them have had very bad things happen to them by people who look like me. So we're working with indigenous nations. One of the guys I'm working with, his father was killed by the dictatorship, sponsored by someone who looks like me. And when anything goes wrong, he can get quite paranoid. So there's lots and lots of obstacles to deal with when you're trying to set up a network. And this is about what we can learn from nature about how to do networks intelligently. So, networks in nature. RAIN is based on the mycorrhizal root network, which is the way that trees communicate beneath the forest floor. And these are mycelial links. These are fungal little threads. If you step on the ground, there are hundreds of miles of fungal threads in a forest beneath your feet in like 1 square foot of soil. So these things are richly connected. Like a mycorrhizal root network can cover an entire forest and it can live for centuries. So what do? Firstly, they connect. Secondly, they allow different trees to communicate. That's why it's called popularly the Wood Wide Web. And we're going to look at those forms of communication. And they also allow for trees to collaborate. So if there is a resource, for example, if a dog shits in the woods, then the mycorrhizal root network will communicate the fact that there's a new resource there, and it will also redistribute that resource around. And why does it do this? A forest is a collective superorganism. And when they work together, it's much more collectively resilient. We're going to be giving some examples of that in a moment, but, you know, one tree can't use a whole dog turd. It needs to distribute that around. You know, there's certain resources which we have, and they're starting to stink, and they need to be redistributed, and that's what we're talking about today. So, for redistributing resources, for collective resilience, and for abundance, I'm going to give you an example of how this works. But first, we'll talk about human networks. So. Ants are a good example of a natural network, mycorrhizal root network. We're going to talk about slime molds in a moment, but how do these relate to human networks? So human networks do just the same. They connect, they communicate, they allow us to collaborate. And this is very important as we enter a period of climate disruption where we're having to deal with all kinds of global threats, changing weather, crop failures, starvation in certain areas, supply chains breaking down, refugees. One of the really important challenges that we're facing at the moment is how do we redistribute resources? How do you do logistics around that? And this is what natural networks are really, really good at doing. So if we have some global threats, then we need some global solutions. What can I, as an individual, do about melting ice caps? Or 40 million climate refugees from North Africa? Or you know, these things are far too big for one individual to deal with. But as a network, as we'll see, a certain magic happens when amoeba network. So if amoeba can do magic when they network, what can we as humans do when we network properly? So that's what we're looking for, a global network. To answer, I'll give you an example of how we assist with communication. I mentioned the indigenous leader before. who can't read. So what did we do? We got a Marvel storyboarder to design the process of association with rain with pictures. So you start with a conversation, then they sign a contract, then you take a photos, then we show photos to our network, and then we raise money, and then you take more photos. Like, indigenous people will say that white people require contracts. They only obey contracts, right? So it's very important for them, more than me. I mean, they can't read the contracts often. We can read the contracts, but they're very insistent that we have a contract. And then when something goes off piste, well, they know which way it's going. Here's a big question. Could the networked intelligence of a distributed global collective respond to challenges we fail to meet as individuals? And if it can't, what kind of trouble are we in? How do nature's networks think, and what can the NGO world learn from them? This is the mycorrhizal root network. If an insect attacks a tree will produce defense chemicals that the insect doesn't like. It takes a couple of days, right? But the tree will do something else. It will also communicate through the mycorrhizal root network to other trees that there's a threat in the area, and other trees will also defend themselves. So when the insect goes to the other trees, it will find them already defended. Now this is good because it means that the trees collectively stay healthy. When a tree falls over in the forest, it's bad news for the forest because the forest wants to maintain its humidity, wants to maintain its shade, wants shelter for its very controlled microclimate. So when a tree does fall over, the mycorrhizal network will stimulate trees around it to send nutrients to that area so it can produce a growth spurt and plug that gap very quickly. So how is this useful for me in the NGO world to understand that? What can we learn from that? Well, a message needs two things for it to work. Firstly, it needs to spread widely, including to other species. So the mycorrhizal root network, a Douglas fir, for example, will inform a spruce how to defend itself. And it also needs to provoke an appropriate response. Now, I'm sure you have seen lots of images of this, the Amazon burning. I've been seeing these since I was a child. And two things. I don't want to spread this. I don't want to share this with my mum. This is horrible. Secondly, this doesn't provoke the right response. This just makes me panic and makes me want to curl up in a ball. Right? So what kind of media can we produce that makes people respond in the correct way? So what do we do at RAIN? I'll give you an example of the media that we made. We worked with the Nokikoi indigenous nation. This is Mestre Poa, the leader of the Nokikoi indigenous nation. It's an Amazonian nation. They have a song about the rubber boom told from the perspective of an indigenous tribe. It's a story of genocide and ethnic cleansing, basically. So we got this song produced and backed up by two London orchestras, the London Mozart Players and the Orchestra for the Earth. And we got Miriam Margolyes from Harry Potter, who is a distant cousin of mine and got in touch with me, asking me for a curry some years ago. So this media then got shared by Classic FM, and it got shared we got a whole load of good media shared widely, and it provokes the right response. If people see beauty, it fires off dopamine in their brains, and they come up with new responses to things. If people see horrible things, it fires off cortisol in their brains, and they just do the same thing over and over again, which is why it's so difficult to give up addictions. And look where we are now. So check that out at Trees and Music. Let's talk about slime molds, my favorite creature. They are single-celled amoeba. They're too small to see with the naked eye. Most of the time they're moving around, collecting bacteria to eat. They really like oats. But they're very, very clever indeed. Sometimes they come together when climatic conditions require it, and they behave in a collective way. For example, they will come together when it's humid and form a mushroom, and then they will spore. They're not actually funguses, they're amoeba, but they will spore. And obviously, a single amoeba, when it goes dry, it can't get into the air currents. So they come together, and they work together, and they can get into the air currents and go and find somewhere else to go and live. Collective behavior. They also respond to a changing environment. All of this is very useful as our environment changes. Slime molds also solve mazes. If you put a whole bunch in a maze and you put some oats at the edge there, they will find the quickest way to solve that maze. These are small, they don't have brains, they're smaller than you can't see them. How do they do that? It's mind-blowing. This is a map of the Tokyo network. You see how the slime mold behaves over 26 hours. First it explores, then it finds, and then it starts to rationalize in the most resource-efficient way how they can join up the network. This is the network they made. This is the actual Tokyo network. This took 26 hours, and it's better than what the Japanese did. More efficient. This is really, really interesting. Slime molds are intelligent in time, right? They don't like blasts of cold air. I don't like blasts of cold air. If you blast it with cold air, it will retreat. The slime mold will start to retreat. If you wait an hour and blast it with another blast of cold air, it will retreat, but it will retreat further because it's remembered that you blasted it an hour ago. And then if you blast it again, this is amazing, it's already starting to retreat 5 minutes earlier. So it's already anticipating, the same way if you set an alarm clock for 9 o'clock and you wake up at 5 to 9, slime molds do that, and they're this big. If you then don't blast it, it's already retreating, but then it goes, oh, I'm not getting blasted now. So we've got memory, we've got recall, we've got adaptation, which is pretty amazing. I know people who are less intelligent than slime molds. Collective behavior, responding to a changing environment, mapping territory, optimizing distribution, solving problems, and perceiving rhythms in time. Wouldn't that be really useful as we enter a period of climate chaos, if we could do this together? Why do they do this? They do it for collective resilience. They do it to survive. How do they do this? We don't know. Scientists have not worked out. It might have something to do with the fourth phase of water. It's craziness, but we don't know how to do it. But we do know that it involves plugging into a network and becoming a superorganism. And how can we become a superorganism? And could the networked intelligence of a distributed global collective respond to the challenges we may fail to meet as individuals? This is the river I was telling you about. Isn't it horrible? It used to be very beautiful. This was the first project we did. It was a spring restoration with the local beekeepers union. These were the kids, one of the kids who was watering the trees that went into it. We do schools twinning projects. Why do we do that? The way a mycorrhizal root network works is not centralized, it's decentralized. In fact, it's distributed. So what we do is we set up a school in Brazil with a school in the UK, an indigenous school and a school in the UK. We encourage them and help them to make a direct connection. So the children in one school are making videos about what they eat, and they're thinking about food miles, they're thinking about water cycles, and we have a kind of exchange going on. And we kind of get them going, but we really want them to take that in any way that they can. This is what's meant by a distributed network, right? We provide the means, and then you can go ahead and do what you like. A bit like that video I showed you before. It was an indigenous project from the north of Brazil, and then another Atlantic project from the coast of Brazil, finding all kinds of ways of cross-fertilizing, which is also what mushrooms are very good at. So the schools projects, if we can get kids talking to each other across these very, very difficult kind of post-colonial landscape, there's a political edge to this. A lot of indigenous nations are facing land grabs. That means agro-business coming in, taking their land. This particular school, My Terra, that's Professor Antonio there. This is a reocupado. This means it's a piece of land which was taken back off farmers. This guy, oh no, he's not there. Some of our associates have been shot at by farmers while they were doing this. Some of them being imprisoned. Anyway, this doesn't get very much press when there's a land grab in Brazil. That's because those schools are not connected to schools in Brighton and Oxford, where mums care about the fact that their schools' kids' friends are having their land taken off them. So this is an effort in globalizing love. This is another project we did, working with the favela in Recife. When the pandemic started, people started to get really, really hungry in the favela, so we worked with the Black Women's Group, set up a demonstration center, or when I say we, someone from the University of Pernambuco came and approached us, and we put her through our masters, and this was her project, producing a popular education booklet talking about how to collect water off your roof, how to make compost, how to grow your own food, all those kind of things. This was so successful that it expanded into 9 favelas. How do we do this? We made some beautiful media of these people doing their thing, and we spread it through our networks. More money came in, so we put it into 9 favelas. Then we got contact from a guy in a refugee camp in Kenya with 250,000 people. So we translated their booklet into English, and it's been used there now. And they're also translating into Swahili, and we've also translated into Arabic for the occupied territories as well. This is what a network does. It takes a good idea from one place, and it transfers it to another place in the local idiom. So, networked intelligence is about connecting. So, join the RAIN Business Network community online. There is a, what do you call this thing? A QR code, thank you. If you point your phone at that, you can connect with us. You can also visit our stall, which is over there. You can talk to us about our projects. We're looking for partners. We're looking for volunteers. We're looking for money. We're looking for all the things that can make this work. We are now recently a charity. Help globalize love. rainreforest.org.uk and info@rainumbrella.org. So if you've all got that down, unless there's some burning questions you want to ask me. No? Okay, I'm going to try and find this piece of media that I've been bigging up. Thank you very much, everybody. You can see that on treesandmusic.org. If you want to come and talk to us, we're over there. Or if you want to find me online later, just check out the website. I'll be there. Thank you very much.